Okay, stop right there. I want you to look around your immediate environment. Look at the device you're listening to this on, the wall behind it, maybe the person or the pet near you.
Okay.
Now, what if I told you that every single atom, every molecule of everything you see is a unique physical structure that exists solely because your mind is constructing it right now in this moment?
And if that wasn't, mind-bending enough, what if we added that the simple, pervasive emotion of fear,
Right.
whether you're conscious of it or not, doesn't just give you a bad feeling, but it literally causes those physical constructions to be structurally unsound, defective, maybe even dangerous.
That is the intensely practical, yet completely high concept territory we are diving into today. Welcome to the Deep Dive. I'm your host, and with me is my guide to making sense of these profoundly layered realities.
Hello, and welcome to You, the Learner. Our mission, as always, is to take source material that might seem, dense or overwhelming and distill the absolute core insights.
The surprising nuggets of knowledge.
Exactly. The things that act as a shortcut to being truly well-informed.
Today, we're going full high-concept metaphysics. I mean, we're tackling some of the most radical ideas about consciousness and matter construction that we've ever seen. But don't worry, we promise to keep the tone conversational.
Maybe a little chilling.
A little chilling and absolutely thought-provoking. We're here to keep you hooked.
Our source material for this deep dive is Session 69, recorded on Wednesday, July 8, 1964. This material is extracted from the early sessions Book 2 of the Seth Material, credited to the publisher, New Awareness Network.
And this session it's a crucial hinge, isn't it? It connects observations from an incredible demonstration with these brand new radical conceptual frameworks.
It really is. It's all about how our minds literally manufacture physical reality.
And before we jump in, we want to make a quick mandatory declaration right here at the start. This deep dive, Session 69, will be distributed free of charge on all major platforms for educational and informational purposes. Our goal is to bring these profound concepts to you, the curious mind, quickly and clearly.
So you can integrate them into your own understanding of existence.
Exactly.
Now, for a quick contextual detail from the session log to set the scene.
Oh, I love this part.
Jane, who is referred to in the material as Ruburt, was noted to be slightly nervous going into the session. It followed an extraordinary one just 2 days prior.
Right.
But the most relaxed element in the room, the cat, Willy. The log notes that Willy was prowling around, all alert and stealthy.
Like a little panther.
Right, until the session actually began. And then the moment the channel started, he immediately calmed down, curled up, and began to doze in a chair.
See, the cat knows. He was waiting for the energy shift. He was the pre-show security detail.
That's a good way to put it.
As soon as the channel was in place, Willy was like, "My work here is done. You all handle the atoms. I'm taking a nap."
It's a delightful image, and it contrasts perfectly with the calm start and the intensely physical concepts we are about to get into.
Specifically, the nature of matter construction itself.
Exactly.
Okay, let's unpack this right away. The discussion in Session 69 dives immediately into the mechanics of what happened in the preceding session.
Right, the confirmed existence of an apparition seen by Mark, Joseph's friend.
And the source material doesn't. It doesn't equivocate at all, does it?
Not in the slightest, no. It confirms the event's reality, which is massive. The material says, and I'm quoting here, "I mentioned that the change in Ruburt's features was authentic, and also that what you prefer to call an apparition did indeed exist."
So this wasn't dismissed as, collective imagination or anything like that.
Not at all. It was real.
And the term used for it is the key to everything we're about to discuss. It was a valid construction. My immediate question is, what does valid construction even mean in this context? I mean, if it's unstable, short-lived, and only one person saw it, how is it valid in the physical sense?
That's the perfect question. Valid construction means it physically existed. It was composed of actual matter, real atoms and molecules.
So it occupied space. It had physical properties.
It did, even if they were transient. This is critical. It was not a hallucination. A hallucination is an internal, non-material event. This apparition was externally real.
So we're talking about instant focused materialization.
Precisely. But, and this is a huge but, it was a short-circuited demonstration. The source material explains that to create matter that endures...
Like a stable, functioning chair or a rock or a complete human body.
Exactly. That requires many factors. Consistency, the collective telepathic agreement of observers, and the full energy of the whole self. In this specific experiment, those factors were purposely lacking. They were withheld.
So it was like a lab experiment designed to fail quickly.
That's a great analogy.
To prove a point.
It is. It demonstrated the mechanism of creation without the stability of creation. It proved that individualized mental energy can directly fabricate atoms and molecules into a physical form, even one that doesn't last.
Which naturally leads to Joseph's immediate question, the one we all have. Did the cat, Willy, see this physical construction?
And the answer was a definitive he did not, which, supports the idea of individual construction. But
Wow.
Willy did sense the apparition, and this is a subtle but vital distinction. The visual form, the construction we label as seeing, that's individual. However, the underlying energetic shift,
The change in the material environment.
yes, the sheer change caused by the presence of these newly formed atoms, that was palpable to a sensitive entity like Willy.
So here is where we hit the absolute core insight of the session,
Wow.
and it completely redefines the entire concept of objective reality. Why did only Mark see this construction?
The mechanism is defined simply and, well, profoundly. An individual only sees his own constructions. The apparition was constructed by Mark.
Let's pause on that, because that is a massive conceptual leap. It requires some scaffolding.
It does.
When I look at a chair, I assume the chair exists independently of me. Now you're saying that when I look at a chair, I am receiving data and I am then building my own chair composed of my own atoms and molecules within my personal space.
That is precisely the claim. In a normal situation, say, observing that chair, all conscious entities in the room, you, me, and anyone else, receive similar, consistent inner clues.
Like data sets.
Data sets from the inner self, yes. These clues are essentially the instructions for construction.
And because our inner clues are so tightly coordinated and consistent,
We then each individually construct our own physical version of that chair. Each version is composed of definite atoms and molecules, existing within each person's unique perspective.
but because the data is so similar,
All those individual constructions of the chair are so alike, they overlap and interlock so perfectly, that we appear to see one single shared objective object. The coordination is what creates the illusion of shared objectivity.
okay, I'm challenging this. I'm being the necessary skeptic here.
Go for it.
If my chair is separate from your chair, how does physics even work? How can we both sit on our separate chairs without falling through? Does my constructed chair physically support your constructed body?
That is a fantastic question, and it speaks to the coordination principle. The source implies that the inner clues contain the necessary data not only for the object's form, but also for its interactions. The atoms you construct for the chair are instantly responsive to the atoms you construct for your body. The entire field is a dynamic, coordinated matrix. It's not that the constructions are parallel and independent.
They're coordinated.
They are separate, unique, but coordinated in real time by this massive underlying inner data stream.
So the coordinated illusion is so perfect that the laws of physics are seamlessly upheld within each person's self-constructed reality.
That's the idea.
That's a powerful idea. And in the case of the apparition, that coordination failed deliberately. The inner clues to build a physical form were withheld from Jane and Joseph.
Right, meaning Mark was the only one with the building instructions. It was a failure in coordinated telepathy, which proves the individuality of construction. It showed the raw mechanism.
Now let's talk about the specific features of that raw construction. Mark also drew a sketch, and the apparition featured an enormous cranium and large frontal lobes. What was Mark seeing there?
This is actually one of the most humorous and telling details in the session,
Oh, well,
because it highlights the often clumsy translation process from abstract inner reality to concrete material form.
okay, please elaborate. This is the perfect use of humor in high-concept material.
Mark received the impression of an intelligence superior to any usually experienced in the physical field. So he's grappling with this massive, high-order concept, pure, powerful intellect. How does a human mind translate that into a physical visual form? It takes the physical structure, most commonly associated with intellect, the brain, and exaggerates it to the extreme.
So, superior intellect equals a head so big it looks like a philosophical cranium. An abstract idea literally translated into a physical feature. It's like saying, I guess if it's really smart, it needs a giant brain.
It's the visual shorthand of the inner self, and it just emphasizes that outer constructions are always translations of actions from inner reality. The appearance and effectiveness of any material construction depend entirely on the individual's ability to receive the raw energy, correctly translate the data, and manipulate that energy into a physical form.
And if that ability is distorted, if the data is received incorrectly,
Then the construction will be faulty, which is precisely the next major insight we need to unpack.
right.
Now that we understand the apparition was a valid construction, but an unstable one, we need to understand the source of that instability. Why did this real physical form not endure?
The source material is clear on this. It lacked the greater data, which is the property of the whole self, required for the construction of a completed human form.
Yes. Stability requires a massive energy investment and a complete, consistent data set, the full intention of the whole self channeled into the creation. The apparition was built on a partial blueprint.
So certain conditions just weren't met.
They weren't met, or they were deliberately avoided for the demonstration.
But even as a short-lived construction, it wasn't made of nothing. And this is where we get into the consciousness of simple matter.
Right.
The source confirms that the atoms and molecules of the apparition had what are termed capsule comprehension and generalized consciousness. Let's define these for the learner, because this sounds like scientific jargon, but it's a philosophical revelation.
Absolutely. We need to scaffold this. Think of generalized consciousness as the basic sentience or aliveness inherent in all matter. The Seth Material suggests that nothing in the universe is truly inert.
Even a rock is conscious.
Even a rock, though its consciousness is vastly different from ours. So, generalized consciousness is the base level, the recognition of existence.
And capsule comprehension, what is that?
Capsule comprehension refers to the specific, limited knowledge set within those atomic structures that allows them to interact and form a gestalt, a whole.
Yeah.
When Mark constructed the apparition, his mental instructions dictated the form. The individual atoms, possessing their capsule comprehension, understood just enough, the specific, temporary instructions, to perform their function in forming that apparition.
They fulfilled a specific, limited value fulfillment.
Precisely. That's the term used.
Value fulfillment. I love that term. So the atoms weren't just passively building. They were actively fulfilling a temporary purpose assigned by the constructor.
Their value is fulfilled by participating in that moment of materialized form. They are responsive, conscious participants in the creation of reality.
However, because the overarching data set, the whole self's blueprint, was incomplete, the resulting structure couldn't sustain itself.
It lacked stability. The atomic components were only given short-term instructions.
Now, let's tackle the inevitable question. Are apparitions ghosts, or these fleeting physical phenomena? Are they common?
They are more common than people suppose. But here is the critical insight, the ultimate aha moment of this segment.
This changes everything.
It does, quote, "And the more complete they are, the less they are realized as apparitions. Other reasons are found to rationalize away their existence."
Okay, let's drill down on that rationalization trap. If I have a nearly complete apparition, let's say I build a construction of a person walking down the street, and that construction is 98% solid and consistent with my coordinated reality.
You wouldn't call it an apparition.
I would just register it as a person walking down the street.
Exactly. Your mind is always seeking coordination. If the construction is seamless, your built-in programming simply accepts it as normal reality. It's only the 2%, the unexpected, the flawed, the inconsistent flicker that registers as wrong.
And rather than accept that my personal reality construction sometimes deviates, we rely on immediate, socially accepted explanations. Mistaken identity, poor lighting, optical illusion.
We rationalize the data away to maintain the illusion of shared objective reality.
So every time you swear you saw something out of the corner of your eye or you thought you heard your name called, and then there was nothing there. May not have been a mistake. It might have been an incomplete, defective construction that you built and then immediately dissolved because the inner data stream flickered.
That's a very plausible scenario, according to this material. And this brings us directly to the practical consequences of inner attitude.
Specifically, expectation.
Expectation. This is relevant to everything from our health to our wealth.
You mentioned a powerful warning earlier, and we need to dedicate time to it because it is so practical. The source connects construction directly to our emotional state.
It does with this quote. "In all cases without exception, fear leads to defective constructions and the cycle is vicious."
Without exception, that's a strong statement.
It is. This is the intersection of psychology and physics. Fear is a powerful data stream. If you are operating from a core state of fear, say financial fear, fear of illness, or relational fear, you are channeling negative instructions to the very atoms and molecules that make up your environment.
So fear doesn't just feel bad, it literally destabilizes the material reality you are constructing.
It does. It translates into unstable material forms. Think of a person who is terrified of being burgled. They construct a reality rife with vulnerability. That fear, manifesting physically, could lead to perpetually defective constructions around their home, a faulty lock, a loose window.
A car that frequently breaks down.
Right, and these physical defects then reinforce the original fear. That's the vicious cycle.
The source even references Joseph and Jane's past experience at York Beach, Maine, noting those fragments created years prior were tied directly to fear and expectation.
The message is simple. If we want a stable, positive environment, we must eliminate the core fear that is undermining the consistent, enduring material structure we need to build for ourselves.
It's about being deliberate with the inner clues we transmit.
If the inner reality is chaos or terror, the outer constructed material reality will reflect that chaos, making your physical life a constant source of stress.
So if the last section stretched the mind, this next part takes the mind and puts it in a conceptual blender.
Laughing. That's one way of putting it.
We established that the atoms and molecules of any construction, regardless of its duration, have consciousness to some degree. That means the glass on my desk, the pavement outside, everything is conscious.
Yes, generalized consciousness permeates all matter. And this leads to the ultimate philosophical difficulty, one the source material notes it had been putting off.
Which is?
When we observe a simple object, the consciousness is generalized. But what happens when we observe a person who is, by definition, a fully self-aware, self-generating conscious entity?
And the source material addresses Joseph directly, saying, this is going to be difficult. I can see you shaking your head, and I have been putting off the inevitable.
That hesitation alone tells you how profound this question is. And then it launches into the core conceptual problem, right there in the room, using Ruburt as the subject.
This defines the difference between the self and the perceived self. Let's detail this step by step.
Okay, first we have Ruburt's primary construction.
The original.
The original, the self-generated, fully conscious physical image that Ruburt creates for herself, using her whole self's data set. It is the original, stable, self-aware form.
Okay, that makes sense. Second, we have Joseph's construction of Ruburt.
Right. Joseph, the observer, is receiving inner clues, translating them, and building his own material image of Ruburt. And we know from what we just discussed that this is a valid material construction.
Composed of real atoms and molecules existing within Joseph's unique perspective.
Now expand that. If 5 different people are observing Ruburt, we end up with 6 physical bodies in that location.
Wait, 6?
Ruburt's primary construction and 5 separate, unique, but highly coordinated secondary constructions, each one built by a separate observer composed of definite material atoms and molecules.
This means that Ruburt, to an outside observer, isn't one body. She is 6, existing simultaneously in different personal realities, all interlocked through coordinated energy. This completely redefines the geometry of reality.
It does, and this leads to the existential dilemma that the source poses directly. Do all 5 secondary constructions,
The material images built by the observers,
contain Ruburt's consciousness, different consciousnesses, or are they conscious at all?
Joseph intuitively answered yes in the session when asked if his construction of Ruburt was conscious. But the nature of that consciousness is the impossible puzzle.
Well, if the atoms and molecules themselves have generalized consciousness, then the secondary construction, being entirely composed of atoms and molecules, must be conscious to some degree. But is it Ruburt's consciousness inhabiting the secondary observer-built form? Or does the secondary construction have its own localized, observation-dependent consciousness?
So if I construct an image of you right now, an image built by my mind using my atoms, does that image of you feel like you? Or does it feel like an echo, a reflection, a localized entity born of my observation?
This is why the material named this crucial distinction: primary and secondary constructions. The primary construction is the self, the generator, the full dataset entity. The secondary construction is the image built by the observer.
And it relies on the observer's available data and their ability to translate it.
Exactly.
Let's explore the massive implication for the learner. If my secondary construction of my friend is conscious, Then the consciousness of my friend, as I perceive her, exists within my reality framework built by me.
Mm-hmm.
When I talk to her, am I talking to the primary construction or the secondary construction I built?
You are primarily interacting with the dataset that informs your secondary construction. When your friend speaks, you receive those vocal clues, and your internal construction of her updates dynamically. But the hurdle is accepting that the secondary form is real, material, and conscious in your space.
It's a parallel reality of identity.
It is.
And if that image of my friend is conscious, but only exists because I built it, what happens to that consciousness when I stop looking? When I walk out of the room, does the secondary construction instantly dissolve?
And does that localized consciousness just cease?
Or does it retain some form of existence in the localized space I left behind?
This session, unfortunately, doesn't fully answer this. It ends right as the distinction is made, leaving us with this vast, mind-bending conceptual cliffhanger.
But the implication is clear. Identity is not singular or contained. Your existence proliferates into countless conscious material images built by everyone who observes you.
This challenges us to define what the self truly is. Is it the primary construction or the cumulative effect of all the conscious secondary constructions others build of us?
It certainly makes us responsible not just for our own forms, but for the quality of the forms we build of others.
That's it.
If my perception of you is faulty or distorted, I am creating a faulty, distorted, conscious, material entity that represents you in my reality.
It's a radical call for integrity and perception. If we recognize the power we have to materialize the people around us, we must be careful what emotional data, what inner clues we're using to build them.
So, transitioning from this massive abstract concept, the session then grounds itself immediately in practical matters.
It does, tying the quality of constructed reality to environmental influence.
The discussion turns to Joseph and Jane's current living situation in the town of Serre. It was deemed not a good place to live, primarily because of the proximity of family, specifically the parents.
And this isn't just about, relational stress. This is about metaphysical danger. The core reason detailed in the material is that the parents' constructions are extremely faulty and distorted.
And that distortion acts like metaphysical pollution.
That's a great way to put it. The parents' inner attitudes, their expectations, fears, belief systems were so negatively charged that the physical reality they constructed around themselves and the secondary constructions they built of Joseph and Jane were constantly faulty and undermined.
Which creates a negative telepathic sphere of influence. So let's define that. How does that sphere operate, especially when the source says telepathy has nothing to do with distance?
Well, the source states clearly that distance and space is no hindrance to telepathic transfer. You can be influenced by someone 1,000 miles away.
Okay.
However, physical proximity defines a sphere of influence. When distorted constructions are being generated close by, the sheer density and consistency of that faulty energy become pervasive. It affects your own ability to receive clear, positive inner clues for your constructions.
It's like entering a room where the tension is so thick you can cut it with a knife. You might not know why, but your own mood and stability are immediately compromised.
That's a perfect analogy. The material is saying that tension is literally a fault in the constructed environment. You're encountering a reality built on fear and distortion, and that data infiltrates your own construction process. It makes it harder to erect a stable, positive world for yourself.
The good news, though, is the individuals were noted to be making positive steps. They were learning to erect your own protection.
And this protection isn't a magical shield, it's a mental and emotional boundary. It means actively recognizing when distorted data is entering your field and refusing to incorporate it into your own reality construction.
They had become much more effective along that line.
Which indicates progress in filtering external negative construction blueprints.
The session also touches briefly on Jane's career trajectory, noting she had passed the crisis point at the gallery but will not stay there for any lengthy time.
Which is presented not as a failure, but as a natural trajectory. Her inner self is moving her toward an environment more conducive to positive construction.
And this ties back neatly to the power of expectation and work. The material explicitly references a past financial low ebb,
Right.
stating that the financial success they subsequently experienced was the direct result of work and expectation. The work provided the outer structure, but the expectation, the inner belief, provided the coordinated data set needed to materialize that success consistently.
It's the ultimate validation of the thesis. Expectation isn't wishful thinking. It's a blueprint transmitted to the atoms that form your material reality.
Consistent, positive expectation constructs financial stability.
And finally, the advice for taking vacation and weekend excursions is given as most beneficial.
which underscores the need to regularly break away from established environments and spheres of influence, including their own habits, to refresh their inner data streams.
And maintain positive construction momentum.
Now we move into the final segment, the Q&A, where the vibe shifts to a relaxed, slightly humorous exchange.
Yeah, you can tell they're pushing the session past its intended brevity.
It's always fun when the high-concept material gets laced with highly relatable human moments.
The tension has broken, and we can discuss metaphysics with a wink.
My absolute favorite detail is the house name suggestion. Joseph playfully suggests naming their new property the House of Seth.
And the response is classic. I don't have to live with them, you do.
It's just perfect. A great reminder that while the material is profound, the daily reality of applying it is still messy and personal.
But then, right after that lighthearted moment, comes some of the most specific, detailed advice in the entire session. A prescription for Ruburt's physical health that perfectly illustrates the psychological-physical link.
It's the well water cure, and the advice is startlingly specific. Take the well water from the new house, apply it with cotton, and this will aid Ruburt's eyes and eyesight.
This needs deep analysis. It immediately sounds like folk medicine, but the source gives a precise, dual-mechanism explanation rooted in construction principles.
Okay, so what's the first mechanism? The physical composition of the water itself.
Yes. The water is beneficial because of its particular mineral properties due to the underlying rock formation on their land. It's an organic, beneficial, physical input that is already part of the constructed environment they are building for themselves.
But the mineral properties are only one half of the equation. The other key factor is the cool temperature, sometimes as low as 58 degrees Fahrenheit.
And this links directly back to the psychological root of the problem. Ruburt's eye condition, which involves a lack of depth perception and the unconscious favoring of the poorer eye, is stated to be a result of conditioned early panic.
Let's break down the logic here for the learner. How does panic translate into defective eyesight?
Panic, fear, and acute anxiety are experienced physically as a surge of energy and adrenaline. It often leads to a sensation of internal heat or hyperarousal in the nervous system. This psychological heat causes a specific, subtle physiological constriction or distortion that prevents the clear reception and translation of visual inner clues.
So the visual construction is defective because the channel, the body, the nervous system, is overheated by conditioned fear.
Exactly. So the cool water, with its specific mineral content, acts as a counteragent. It directly counteracts the heat that panic causes, calming the localized physical system to allow the inner data stream to flow clearly again.
It's treating the symptom, the heat, the constriction, to allow the deep inner blueprint, the visual construction ability, to be utilized.
It's a remarkable example of how a simple physical element, when understood in the context of inner construction, becomes a precise tool for healing.
And the instructions are practical. Bathing the lids is sufficient. The frequency suggested is twice a day, which is deemed excellent, but then we get that classic moment of human fallibility.
Yeah. If I know Ruburt, twice a week will be all I can expect.
That small aside is just so crucial because it reminds us that even when the metaphysical mechanism is explained perfectly, habit and inertia are powerful forces.
The resistance to changing the current fear-based construction.
And critically, the material gives a specific high-leverage moment for application, using the soaked cotton before psychological time experiments.
This makes perfect sense. Those experiments require maximal clarity and control over the inner data stream. If the cool water stabilizes the body and nervous system,
counteracting the panic-induced heat,
it creates the optimal physical environment for the unconscious data, the source of effective construction, to flow through without distortion. It's preparing the physical channel.
Here, finally, the glasses dilemma brings the health advice full circle back to the metaphysics of construction.
Right. Ruburt possesses the latent healing abilities and the ability to construct visual images more faithfully. She has the internal blueprint for perfect sight. Here is the core conflict. Habit and conditioning hold him back. The reliance on external aids, the glasses, prevents the full utilization of the inner construction ability.
If she uses the glasses, she is confirming the deceptive construction, reinforcing the need for the crutch.
And the warning is blunt. As long as she insists on using her glasses, that innate ability will not be utilized, and the glasses will shortly need changing again. She is constructing a need for external correction.
Which undermines the internal potential for self-correction.
It's the ultimate message of self-reliance in reality creation. You must abandon the crutch to step into the ability. The construction of perfect sight starts internally, not with an external lens.
We covered an incredible amount of ground in session 69, moving from a single observation of an apparition to the fundamental structure of consciousness and matter.
Let's briefly recap the major concepts that should stick with you, the learner. First, remember that reality is not objectively shared. It is constructed individually. When you look at an object or a person, you are building your own unique, physical, atomic structure of that entity.
The stability of your world depends on the coordination of the inner clues you receive. Second, understand the immediate material consequence of your inner state. Fear creates defective and unstable constructions around you.
Trapping you in a self-reinforcing, vicious cycle.
And conversely, clear, positive expectation creates enduring, beneficial material forms.
And third, the massive conceptual leap. The distinction between primary and secondary constructions. If the material image of the person you see is a real conscious construction,
Composed of definite atoms and molecules.
that means your consciousness is participating in creating layered reality for everyone you observe.
If this dive into session 69 has sparked your curiosity, and we certainly hope it has, we encourage you to delve deeper into these remarkable concepts. The foundational understanding of this material comes from studying the Seth Material books.
Especially the early sessions book 2.
Absolutely.
You can find more information about these sources, including the early sessions book 2, and support the continued distribution of this knowledge by visiting the New Awareness Network website and bookstore.
That's at sethcenter.com/the early sessions.
Correct.
And as promised, we leave you with one final provocative thought, building directly on that cliffhanger about secondary constructions.
Go on.
If your physical image of your friend is a real, conscious physical construction composed of atoms and molecules that exists solely in your experience, the image you constructed, what happens to that conscious material secondary construction when you look away? And who or what is seeing its consciousness then?
Something to mull over until our next deep dive. Thank you for diving deep with us.